morning. We have one of our own, Vicki, who give us a, I don't know if we can call it a way-seeking mind talk or
Similar.
can you give us dharma talk?
I'm glad that people came.
We wouldn't miss it. We didn't know any better.
Vicki who? Yeah, but you don't recognize the picture, yeah. That's what it is. Okay.
Open chant. Call and response. The Dharma is vast and subtle. The Dharma is vast and subtle. We now have a chance to see this. We now have a chance to see this. Study this and practice this. Study this and practice this. May we realize this true meaning. May we realize this true meaning.
So normally a student talk is about how I came to Zen practice, and some of you already know the story, some of you don't. So I'm going to include some of that in. I've really been working on the, we've got kind of two sides to our practice. One is polishing and cultivating, right? Cultivating compassion, cultivating. The other part is pulling the weeds and stripping away. Guess which part I don't like, right? Okay, that's the part I'm going to talk about. And it also involves doing, as Zen Master Dogen said, about taking the backward step and turning a light and shining it inward, and using that to understanding the suffering of this being to understand the suffering of all beings. And it sounds kind of, when I first heard that, I'm like, okay, that makes some sense, but it also sounds a little lofty, like maybe that's not true. But we're going to see that I'm going to have some learning to do. So I grew up with non-practicing parents. They were considered themselves Christian, but they didn't attend church. So I did not grow up in the church. And I was on the playground one time and the kids were complaining about, my mom makes me go to church and I hate it and blah, blah, blah. So of course my response was, haha, my mom doesn't make me go. And so the response was, of course, that I'm going to hell. And I couldn't have that. So I said, well, I told my parents I wanted to go to church. And I remember my dad coming to my room telling me that, very open-minded, largely because of his mother, Grandma Mary, very open-minded person. And said, well, which church do you want to go to? Is there one that your friends go to, whatever? And I said, well, yeah, I want to go to a church like Mom. So I go into the church and they were telling me what they believed, and I thought that this was going to be an exchange of ideas. I didn't realize that Southern Baptists would not do this, and this was not going to be an exchange of ideas. The way I was able to articulate my connection to God was that animals had spirits. I didn't know fancy terms like immanent God versus transcendent God. I'm going to use some of these terms later because I think they're important. But an immanent God, as I understand it, is a God of the world, a God in the world. You're seeing it in the animals and the plants and the trees, and kind of what we do with non-duality. But of course, I didn't have that vocabulary at the age of 7 or 8. I was told this was bad, this was wrong, this was evil, and I was going to be punished if I pushed back, because that's back talking, and you don't talk back to an adult when you're a child, especially in the Southern Baptist Church. So they're trying to kill my connection to God. And then they found out that my father was Catholic. Well, we can't have that. A parent has to be wrong. This was confusing to me because it was not a problem to me. It's not a problem to my family. It seems to be a problem to other people. And they wanted me to adopt their problem, turning me against my parents. And I finally was able to say something like, well, let's see, I have parents of 2 different genders and I'm not confused. I have parents of 2 different occupations and I don't ask who's better. I didn't know about Myers-Briggs, but I have parents of two different personalities. I don't ask who's right. Why would I care about people being of a sect of the same religion? It just was baffling to me why a church would want to turn me against my parents. And if I pushed back and defended my family, that's again is back talking, and that's a problem, and I'm a bad girl. So I tried a bunch of different churches. Well, try my church, Well, I'll go to the Catholics, they were just as bad. My mom came home from the bowling alley once I'll call it the sectarian 70s, when all these sects were thinking that they were better than everybody. And she was furious that the topic of the bowling alley teams of that particular day were who was going to hell. And apparently people in the bowling alley knew. The murderers, and the rapist, and then I'm just going to randomly pick a sect here. The Catholics said that the Lutherans weren't going, the Methodists weren't going, the Baptists, and all this sectarian crap, and she was just furious about that. So I really hated, sectarian fighting about that. So then I heard, well, you can come to my church, we're different. Okay, do you talk about Jesus? Yes, well then no, you're not. And so, I just kind of learned that this is a very bad place. This is a harmful place that people want. And I finally got smart enough that if a Catholic asked me whose parent I sided with, I told them I was Baptist, like my mom, so they would leave me alone. And if a Protestant asked me, I said I was Catholic, like my father, so they would leave me alone. But I still wanted spiritual nourishment. I didn't know how to get it, right? So I would kind of dabble, and then I love to sing. Okay, I'm going to sing in the choir, but I have to listen to the sermon. I don't like that. So what am I going to do? And so I dabbled here and there, and couldn't stomach pretending to be Christian for very long. And then in high school, I had a part-time job at a steakhouse, which is odd because I'm vegetarian, but anyway, and then we learned very quickly that the full-time staff were old enough to buy beer. And that's really important if you're in high school and not old enough to buy beer. So we had a party over at the full-time workers' apartment, and we would all hang out, and there was a creepy dude that lived there. And people didn't want to talk to the creepy dude. They would just walk past him like he's not there, and I thought that was rude, that was disrespectful. And so I would always say, well, hi, how are you? Because that's what a person should do. And so creepy dude, and one of the workers liked Rocky Horror Picture Show, so I had to be indoctrinated into that. And so I had fun throwing things at the screen and getting up and dancing in the aisles and going through and doing fun things with Rocky Horror Picture Show. So I told my best friend, my childhood friend that I had known since 4th grade, you got to come to this. This is fun. You're going to hang out. We can have beer or wine and perhaps other stuff, and go see Rocky Horror. And so she came, and next thing I know, she's flirting with creepy dude, and I'm like, what are you doing? And she's like, he's so ugly, he's cute. I'm like, okay, if you like this dude, I don't have to get it, but whatever. So then that fall, we went away to college, and creepy dude would come and visit, and he wanted to talk to us about God. And he started out so open and so ecumenical, like this is what I was trying to do. It's not just about a sect and this person is right and this group is wrong. I wanted to get beyond all of that, right? And so he started out really open, and he was old enough to buy beer and perhaps other stuff, and he would bring us stuff, and we would have these mind-expanding sessions. And I didn't understand it when he said that I was going to be the new Squeaky. I didn't know about the Manson family. I don't think he was in the Manson family. I think he was a promise keeper type person and wanted to brainwash us to serve God by serving him. And so this went from very liberal and very open to, God has told me now that I should not be buying you beer. I'm like, no, you're a hypocrite. You just went back on your word, no. And I started calling him out on this stuff because, no. My friend was like, oh, it was like she was high. And, this was after he stopped doing that. Oh, I never wanted to be a nurse. All I've ever wanted to do is serve God. And I can do that by serving him. I'm like, what is happening? I've known you since 4th grade. All you've ever talked about is wanting to be a nurse. But she was in hook, line, and sinker, and she married this dude. He was trying to get her to disassociate from her parents, disassociate from me, which she refused to do. After a year, I guess, of having her alone, he was furious that he could not get her to disassociate from me. This was a real sticking point with him. Apparently, it really bothered his ego. So junior year of college, they came down for a visit. She was pregnant. I was excited to see them. I wanted to talk about the pregnancy. How are you doing? And they wanted to talk about, they said they were on a mission from God. So you're all thinking about the Blues Brothers now, right? Coming in, they're on a mission from God to save my soul. My friend kept getting up and going to the bathroom. I thought she was sick because she was pregnant. It turns out, no, she was praying for my soul. And finally, the creepy dude stood up and with a smirk on his face told me that we have to leave because there's too much evil here, and this was the dissociation ritual that he was trying to get her to do, and he came to rub my face in it. So I said, well, in that case, get out, and I lost a childhood friend. Very, very painful, and I was done with Christianity. I was done with religion. As far as I was concerned, I wanted all religion off the face of the earth, except for maybe some Native American and maybe, I don't know, the Hindu or something. And then of course, we can't believe in evolution. I'm like, okay, so I have to hate my parents, one of my parents. I have to be stupid and uneducated. It just, you couldn't say Bible to me, you couldn't say Jesus to me, and without me cringing and just, even though I had open-minded parents and whatnot. So I still wanted spiritual nourishment. I believed falsely that I was an atheist. I reject this stuff, so I must be an atheist, right? That's what they told me. So I became an atheist. Get rid of religion, get it out of the schools, get it out of everything. So I thought, because of my family lore, that I had some Native American in me, which is funny. If you look at me, you can see that I'm a white person, that is not true. But at the time, that's what I thought. And so I thought, well, this animals having spirit thing, I wonder if there's some kind of, way I could get nourishment through that. So I joined the Lakota religion, Sweat Lodge, very beautiful religion, learned their sacred songs, and did it for a year. And all of a sudden, one of the things started to kind of break down, right? One of the ladies said, oh, I'm having these abdominal cramps. The reason is because God's mad at me because I got my tubes tied. No, I'm sorry, dear. That is Catholicism. Nothing wrong with Catholicism, but I want Lakota religion. Oh, this is Lakota religion. No, that's Catholicism. And then they started talking about hell. No. That's a Christian concept. Nothing wrong with that. And it became no, and they started fighting me on this, and I started to get angry, as I sometimes do. And I started to say, no, name a sacred song that has the word hell in it. They couldn't do it. It has pipe, chanupa, I knew all the songs and I could speak some Lakota, but no. And then they started attacking me. And I'm like, what is the matter with these people? What is the matter? How do they not see that their religion has been corrupted by and influenced by Christianity and whatever, and then they're mad when I point it out. Are they uneducated? Are they stupid? Are they misinformed? Or whatever? I'm going to come back to that. That's an important point. I had an insight into that. Okay, so then I'm like, what am I going to do? So I was complaining to a colleague, and I'm like, well, this is Lakota thing. I did it for a year. I'm surprised I made it a year. Doing anything, anything religious. And she's like, well, you could come to my church. It's different. And so I spent about 5 minutes biting her head off because I had heard about all I cared about was that. She's like, no, Vicki, I wouldn't go to a church like that. Come once. If you don't like it, don't come back. I'm like, well, fine. But they'll prove her wrong. Go. So I go to this Unitarian Universalist church, and I'm sitting there, and I'm looking, and what I really wanted from religion was connection and integrity. Just connection and integrity. So I'm looking at this hymn that we're going to sing, and anytime you have the word God or something like that, I'm like, so Joanne was sitting next to me. I said, I'm not singing this word, I'm not singing this phrase, and I'm not doing this. And she looked, and I was waiting for it, and she's like, that's okay, that's where you need to be. Really? Okay, so la 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 la. Okay, so I did all that, looking for integrity. And Unitarian teaches all major world religions. And all of a sudden, my whole world opened up. Like, I'm not an atheist. There's not just theism. Theism, right, we talk about transcendent theism. Transcendence is a God above the world, above, and then theism is God as a being, pejoratively Big Daddy in the sky. So they rejected that totally. But there's deism and pandeism and theism, and I've later learned monolatry. There's all of these different words and all these different approaches, and oh my God, why didn't I know this? So every time they talked about Taoism and the Tao, I'm like, that makes so much sense. And so does this Buddhism stuff. It's too bad there's nothing that combines the two. Well, if you know anything about Zen Buddhism, that's what Zen Buddhism does. It combines the two and adds some Confucianism kind of together is kind of what we are. So I started coming here till July of 2002. I still went back and forth with the Unitarians in here. It took me 1.5 years because I refused to accept religion, period, because again, I wanted it off the face of the earth. And I remember Joe Marshall, who used to attend here, told me I came he remembered very clearly that I came here in December of 2003 crying because I realized I had a religion. And it was something like, oh my God, haha, I have one too. They couldn't take that from me. So I started learning about religion. I was actually fascinated by it. And I sang in a secular chorus that met at First United Methodist Church. And they are very open-minded, really good Christians. If you need to meet good Christians, go there. And the choir director was also the choir director of the religious chorus. And so if he wanted to have an event, he would pull the choruses together and perform. I like to perform, so I would come to some of their services, and they weren't overly offensive most of the time, And I'm like, okay, maybe these people are cool. So this was a good experience. And then I started thinking, well, wait a minute, I don't know anything about the Jews. I claim to be open-minded, but I don't know anything about them. So I went and saw Rabbi Kushner at Bethel, roughly 2004, and found him very inspirational. And then started to go to Temple Israel about once or twice a year, just to learn, not to convert, just to learn about them and who they are and participate in their service. Beautiful music, by the way, wonderful music. And Nonan, the former teacher here, said, oh, tell Rabbi Azriel, hello. And Rabbi Azriel, if you don't know, is a fantastic, you know him? Fantastic person. He's on a little bit of a pedestal with me. He helped start the Tri-Faith Initiative, which is a Christian church, a Muslim mosque, and a Jewish synagogue all on the same campus. And they have a group together where they support each other, and we're on that listserv. I was kind of scared to announce Gentile in the house because there were some people who were a little, guarded with Gentiles coming to their service, and so I'm like, okay, Nonan told me to tell Rabbi Azriel hi, so I kind of slink up there to the rabbi and I said, hi, I study under Nonan Kawani, and he just lit up. Oh, wonderful. Do you have questions? Come back anytime. And he was so disarming. He was really a neat person. And then we, the Nebraska Zen Center, participated in an event that I consider one of the proudest moments of my life. We worked with a multi-faith group for Habitat for Humanity. We had Buddhist, atheist, agnostic, Hindu, Muslim, Jewish, Christian, Baha'i, and Hindu. I didn't forget anybody. All build a house together for someone escaping religious persecution from the Sudan. Mm-hmm. That's what I was trying to do. That's how religion should work in my mind. None of this sectarian fighting crap. Okay, so peeling back the onion. Peeling back this onion, I had so much logical arguments, and they're good logical arguments, rational arguments, philosophical arguments. Peel them away. What's underneath is a scared and hurt little girl. And so I had to do what Hootie and the Blowfish asked. Let her cry, right? You know how embarrassing it is to sit here and cry about something that happened 50 years ago? Yes, I'm that old to say that. 50 years ago, I will be 59 next month. So about 50 years ago, to peel back this onion, because you want to justify it. You want to say, they hurt me, they did this, they caused my suffering. Oh, no, who's causing my suffering? I am. They hurt me, yes. They acted badly, yes. They're responsible for that, yes. But God, have I held on to it, and God, have I conditioned all these other, it shows all these arguments and built that on top of that hurt girl and the hurt woman in college who had her best friend dissociate from her. So the suffering is not out there, it's in here. I want it to be out there, I wanted to continue to blame them. And then I realized that I gave them power. And how do you like them apples? I gave them power to define God and to define religion. And you think because I'm rejecting them and saying, no, that's not right, nuh-uh, I'm an atheist then. I actually said, yes, your version of God is correct. You have the right definition. You have the right definition of religion, and I'm not that. I actually gave them power. Instead of trying to expand, wait a minute, what if God's a verb? Now, Rabbi Azrael talks about that. What if God is a verb? So I started reading more about, read Paul Nitter's book about without Buddha, I could not be a Christian. And I thought this would be a great way to try to merge some of these religions together. And I have a good friend who grew up in Spain under Franco, who was a dictator. And she rejects she's an American citizen now, but she rejects the church, but still believes. And I was talking to her about something I had read in the book, and I was so excited. I was going to find synergies between Catholic and Buddhism. Yay. So I start to tell her something, and her face becomes very stoic, and then a very plastic smile came over her face. And then when I was done speaking, she said, no, it is not like that. It is like boom, 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 boom. Like I might as well have been standing next to Franco. What is happening? Oh, you've internalized it too. Wait, the Lakota did this, I did it. Oh, wait a minute, what's happening here? So it's not because we're uneducated or misinformed, like I was trying to say about the Lakota. How do you not know that your religion has been corrupted? The definition of that is conquered. The definition of that is conquered. You've been conquered. We talk about compartmentalization. We talk about, all of this stuff. But no. You're conquered when you have internalized that dominant culture, even if you think you're fighting it. How messed up is that? So I understood what was happening with her, and we've talked about it a little bit. And I'm glad because, historically that may have ended the friendship, seeing someone kind of react that way. Recently went to St. Cecilia's Cathedral, and I actually felt reverence in a Christian church for the first time in my life. And I'm almost 59 years old. That's never happened before. And then Nebraska Zen Center got a email from the College of St. Mary. And I'm like, why are we getting an email from College of St. Mary? They're talking about this event at St. Cecilia's Cathedral, talking about that this Barlam and Josaphat is that the Catholic saint is actually the Buddha. And they wanted to invite us. And of course, I'm like, okay, what's the rub here, And we're going to get special seating. And I'm not embarrassed to say I cried. Christians are reaching out to me as an equal, not to convert me, not to beat me up about it, not to tell me I'm less than, as an equal. And we get special seating. It was just the second pew, but my God, that was more important to me than the concert. And on the way there, there was someone that said, well, I don't know, hopefully they're not going to try to convert us, but they didn't. So that was really nice. Daishin talks about, with religion, a lot of times we're throwing out the baby with the bathwater. And I just wonder how many people like myself think that they're atheists that aren't, or think that they don't need or want religion or don't see the value in it. And that's kind of sad. So transcendent theism, that big daddy in the sky, was on Rabbi's class. I'm taking his class on Thursday. It's very interesting, by the way. And he talks about God as a verb, and he's very open. It's just so refreshing. And one of the ladies started talking in terms of transcendent theism. And I was stiffening up, and like, there it is, the wall's coming down and glazing over, and I was like, wait, no, so we're talking about God is ever, what is the man? And it's all wants to come out. Wait a minute. I've had people try to kill my connection to God. I know what that feels like. Why do I need to do this to her? Do I need to do this to her? Stop, wait a minute. But that's a threat to me. Is it a threat to me? How is it a threat to me? She's not a threat to me. That's how she connects to God. I shouldn't take that from her, because again, I feel very safe with the Jews because they're not going to try to convert me. They're not going to tell me I'm wrong. All the worst thing they can say to me is, you're not one of us, and I already know this. So, there's nothing else that you can really say about that. So that was also very healing for me. So I'm trying to do what, Zen Master Dogen said, to take that backward step, turn the light, shine it inward, look at this being, seeing this suffering, and because maybe those people that acted badly toward me, maybe they were suffering too. Don't want to excuse their behavior. They still hurt me. But maybe I can use that suffering to understand the suffering of all beings. And that's my talk.
Any comments, questions?
Well, I'd like to know the book that you.
Without Buddha, I could not be a Christian. Paul Knitter, Knitter. I think you've read that as well. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I get it on Audible because I'm lazy.
No, that's what I was hoping, so I will.
Yes, that's all I'm hoping. Scott.
Is Rabbi Ezra still going?
Yes, he is. He is the Rabbi Emeritus. I wanted him to give a talk here because I wanted to do comparative religion. His health is failing. He moved to assisted living, and he only gives talks now via Zoom. And so we do that on Thursday mornings. If you're available Thursday at 10 o'clock, he's doing a class on the book of Job. I'm actually reading the Bible for the first time in my life and getting something out of it and genuinely seeing value in it. Because normally when I read the Bible, I read it like a fundamentalist and think this is supposed to be literal. Are you kidding me? Yeah, no. And not seeing the value. And then anytime someone would try to say, well, can you look at it this way? It always felt like, I need to convert you. I need to make you see this. And I couldn't process it. But again, he is very safe to me. So so he teaches via Zoom on Thursdays. Yes.
That was awesome, Vicki.
Oh, good.
Thank you for sharing. There's so much about your journey that I had never heard before. So
Okay,
it was
good.
really illuminating. I'm curious, how you think your Zen practice has kind of helped you more recently with being open to these different experiences with people in religion.
Relating, then using my practice and then relating to other people then?
Yeah, just do you see, has your, the way that you've approached these experiences shifted with your Zen practice because of your Zen practice? Do you see a connection there?
Oh, I see. For me, a lot of this stuff is so interrelated. It's easy when you have the aha moment to point at, say, Rabbi Ezra and give him all the credit.
Sure.
But, it's a lot of this has been brewing, and it's not like I've worked on this every hour of every day, right? I mean, it's almost embarrassing to say, I came here in 2002 and I'm just now getting over some of my distress. I mean, that's over 20 years ago, But it's like I said, I haven't been working on it constantly for 20 years. But yeah, I think, seeing ritual. I just got back from Greece and Spain. And, I'm looking at these medieval Catholic, things that we don't have here, from the 12th and 13th century. I'm like, wow, this is like the history of humanity. And my friend, the one who grew up under the dictator, was always tries to be a little respectful, she doesn't want to try, I'm not trying to convert you. And no, it's okay. So she was surprised that I was actually, and so was I, that I was really responding positively to this. So I think, studying Zen and then seeing parallels between Judaism, seeing them parallels between Christianity, where we've joined OTOC, Omaha Together One Community, and there's an amazing Catholic woman in there who's doing things with immigration that I don't know how she's able to succeed with this. First United Methodist, so all these things, Daishin teaching, seeing that, wait a minute, we studied Martin Buber per my request, my blue square request, if you know what that is. There's a anti-Semitism is on the rise, and there's a blue square advertisements that people are talking about. And so I was concerned, and I asked Daishin on his Thursday night class to talk about it. And we started reading Martin Buber, who's a Jewish theologian. And, it could have come right out of a Zen book. And to see that this is not just, because at first I was kind of elitist about I've got a real religion and you screwed up transcendent theists, I treated transcendent theism like it was a monster, is it the Texas Chainsaw Massacre? No, it is transcendent theism, and just, I still cringe, don't misunderstand, but yeah, it's all of these things together kind of working on me. Mark?
Thanks for sharing. I think my journey has a lot of parallels to yours that got me here too. And the Christianity thing, that's the predominant religion around here in America in general. So how do you, and in my world, like most of the people I know are all Christian, family, friends, everyone. These days are now, 22 years later in their practice, or 21, how do you, or what do you find is easiest to relate to the Christians or deal with them, or,
I'm still working on that. So Navab was on this call. She and I were talking about this the other night, and she had some good advice she got from Daishin that don't talk about philosophy. Go and talk about your practice. Talk about how you live your practice, how you live in the world. Kind of like with Habitat for Humanity. We didn't talk philosophy. We went ahead and are trying to live in the world. I think if you find somebody who is into philosophy or into religion, they are going to be more receptive to interfaith dialogue that way. If your average person, my sense is not, because they've learned this is right, like my friend, this is what God is. And if you say God's not a being, you might as well say I'm the devil and I'm here to take you to hell. So I think you have to be careful of that. I don't know, does anybody else have any experience with how you try to interact with Christians? Because again,
I think you said something incredibly beautiful and incredibly. I turned the car. I looked at the website. I was going to be late for meditation this morning, so I said I'm not going to disrupt everybody. I looked at the website. Vicky's talking. So I came partly in support of you as a fellow student, but also because I knew it would be good. It would be great. But there was a gem in the middle of it, an incredibly beautiful, incredibly compassionate thing when you're dealing with your friend and she comes out with the Franco stuff, and you go, "My connection to God was killed by people. Mm-hmm. Who am I to kill hers?" Right. But I don't. Whatever you get, however you access this beautiful thing that we call God or a spiritual pursuit, it's your business. And to just celebrate that. And I think that's what I heard you say there, was just that dealing with Christians, once you start to get into words and you start to philosophize and you start to intellectualize everything, and you do that, and anybody who knows me knows I do that,
right.
And I guess the logical argument, and it can't bullshit, it has to be bullshit. Stop. Mm-hmm. It's got nothing to do with you. You don't need to impose your beliefs on other people. And that's what I really took from that, the dealing with Christians. I find dealing with a lot of Trumpers at the moment for business purposes, and it's really hard sometimes, because you just want to slap them. Mm-hmm. But then at a point you go, look, that is their belief and I must respect, because it happens to be their belief. but whatever about the Trump religion, but definitely when it comes to this Christianity thing, dealing with Christians, it's that just respect it.
Right.
That's why I really thought that was one of those really special moments you get in Nebraska's answer.
Right, and the point is that transcendent theism is not the enemy, it's the belief that that's the only way. That's the
It's
part
the
that's
only
the
way,
problem.
and that you must believe this or
Yes.
you are damned. And you go, no,
Right, exactly.
no, I'm going to ask you to be quiet about that so you don't offend me. And I won't offend you.
And as far as understanding, people of other political views, I'm trying to work on that as well. I
That's
kind of
tougher.
consider it. Well, in some ways, it's the same because, well, anyway, I don't know. We're being recorded. Yes.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for your story. That was awesome. Like a lot of people, I relate a lot to a lot of that stuff, especially like I think you gave me an insight today, talking about being basically accepting what other people say about religion and saying, well, I guess I'm an atheist now. I had the same experience. A lot of my close family, my immediate family, we grew up in the Southern Baptist Church, and I can do a whole thing about that at some point also. But my extended family is still very fundamentalist, and I think my aunt gave me a book when I was in college from the son of I think Pat Robertson's son, I think. One of those guys in like the Focus on the Family thing. This guy said, if you're not this fundamentalist, if you don't believe the Bible is this, then you're not a Christian. Well, I guess I'm not.
Yeah.
I lived that way for probably 10 years until I read some books and came here.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to work around that idea that according to these people, I'm an atheist or whatever, but trying to back away from that because the inside was awesome.
It just the view that they were taught was just so narrow. I don't know, Mark. Do we kind of answer your?
Oh,
your
yes, thank you.
Yeah.
I had the only parallel that I had ever experienced, and I know I told the story, like when I took Chukai and I invited my in-laws and who are super Catholic, and me not having grown up with anything, it was my first experience of the kind of somebody being like, whoa, 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 and it was interesting because like you were saying how like, I thought I was done with this, but there was a point like well after the fact that, this, and my mother-in-law, basically I invited her to Jukai and my mother-in-law said, no, thank you. And we had to talk about it. And one of the comments that she had said that was still rattling around in my brain, like years later, was she said, no, I think there's truth. We think there's truth as Catholics in every religion, but we believe we have the most truth. And that's what she said. And so
Spoken like a good Catholic.
Knock yourself out.
And so like what really got me, the reason I literally started like ruminating about this, like it kind of, I was just like, because underneath all of that, despite what she would have said like in the moment, and if I had given voice to that, it's like, well, basically what you're saying is that my spiritual practice, like unequivocally, is somehow less than, and so after a while, I started using like Buddhist tools to like, okay, why am I suffering about this? Like, why am I so worked up? And I'm like, well, I guess part of it's because I've, without realizing it, and ironically, I've like identified with this practice that I've been doing this a long time, and so I feel like my identity is, and I'm like, okay, well, that's interesting. And so once I realized that, I was like, oh, poof, like it should disappear, but it didn't. And I'm like, well, shit. And so like, and at some point I realized I had this frame for me, but I didn't have one for her, like how to see her differently. And then I remember, I can't remember if there was like an aha moment but more or less I landed on what she was doing was that she was confusing her personal truth with absolute truth, which is, oh my God, don't we all do that?
Yes.
My goodness. I mean, and once I realized that, I was like, oh, well, okay, like, is that all it is? Like, all right, that's fine. Like, really, that was it. And then I just let it go. Like, it was fine after that.
I think that, I think that's what the practice gives me
Mm-hmm.
is, you know, the ability, just like you said, Vicki, is to start examining yourself, you know, examining what's going on in here, which then gives you the ability to, you know, look at another person and apply what you've learned about yourself to that situation.
Exactly, exactly. But it's still hard because I still see that as a threat because of, you know, the political climate of, you know, you potentially have power over me. And, you know, we've had, you know,
Well, I think that, you know, that process though takes away their power over you because you know, you learn to figure out what it is what's going on inside, just like you said, is we're creating our own suffering.
Right, exactly. And, you know, how strongly do I need to react to when people, you know, play Bible verses over, you know, because that infuriated me. I mean,
Over
it's
Zoom.
infuriating me, you know. Or we had somebody come in here over the last year and said, this is not a real religion. And, you know, and I said, oh, well, it is to, you know, I said something, you know what it is to us, you know, and these.
Well, just for your information, a couple weeks ago, you know, Sharmila, who's, you know, a Buddhist, comes in Buddhist practice. She said categorically, Buddhism's not a religion, it's practice. So, you know, you can have different views. It depends on how you define it.
Well, no, potato. No, I think if you start invalidating this, especially with these Christians, that we're gonna, if they get into power, we're gonna lose our 501c3.
It's a contextual thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Because really they are practicing Christianity.
Exactly, or they think they are.
And we can afford to pay the taxes. Screw them, yeah.
Yeah. But still, I don't know. Yeah,
Vicki,
Brian.
thank you so much for sharing. I really enjoy coming to the Sangha because it helps me be a better person. My goal is to just be a better man tomorrow than I am today. And I find labels to be problematic because I am not always, you know, 100% in step with what I say versus what I do. And I think it's unfair to expect that from others, anything like that. But I realize based on your talk that I have to have a conversation with someone when I leave today. So thank you for that.
Oh, sure.
And you know, it's like I like that. You know, I was baptized when I was 30 in the Lutheran Church. Read the Bible cover to cover. Went on mission trips. Taught Sunday school, but I didn't see the evidence that I was being able to become a better man because of that. I had moments, but I didn't see the growth I wanted. And so I feel that when I come to the Sangha, when I meditate, when I follow the practice, it just feels like there's evidence there that I'm seeing that this is the type of person that I want to be. And so I think that in my mind, it's less about the labels and more about, you know, this sounds like this rabbi is a wonderful person. And so I like the fact that it's more, it feels more personal when we get into that type of, you know, is your belief, is your practice, is your religion, is it making you a better person because of it? So however we want to define that. And everything like that. So that's I do appreciate the talk very much today.
Well, thank you. Have you retained some of the Christian Lutheran beliefs or?
They've evolved. They've evolved. I mean, the Bible was a beautiful story, and I read a lot of really things out there, and usually about 2 pages a day over 2 years, and there's some parts of it that really resonated deeply with me, and I still hold on to, and there's other parts that I said that doesn't align with how I want to live my life. And so I think that in my mind, my goal is that people want to be around me. They go like, you know, Brian, you know, he's not being a dick. He's just not, you know, being just rude and insensitive and unempathetic and those things that, you know, I take away from practicing Buddhism. It feels like, okay, this is helping me make better choices in my life.
Mhm.
And so I like that a lot. And so it's that evidence-based, it's like, I'm very much about data.
No, I get it.
I want to be able to see the results of an action. And this feels, so far, in my 60 years, this feels like this is what is resonating the most here.
Any comments or questions online? Hi, Max.
Yes, hi Vicki, thank you for your talk. I wanted to ask, from the sounds of it, at the start of your talk, you were talking about like this interaction with other kids in school, and you're not going to church, so you're going to hell. And then as you continue to talk and through like this path of church to church, you mentioned like seeking a spiritual nourishment, and I was wondering, it seems like there was a transition somewhere in there from this being you were moving away from something at first, moving away from hell, and then you started moving towards something, this sort of spiritual nourishment. I was wondering how that transition played out for you.
Oh, wow, that's a very insightful question. So as if I understand it right, before I was trying to get away from something, now I'm going towards something. And how did that transition? I think probably when I found this religion. And so I found it in 2002 through the Unitarians, and then actually became a member in 2003. And that was kind of the moment, like tribalistic identifying moment, like, I've got one too, I've got a religion too. And you could not have said anything bad about it at that time, because I almost needed it to be perfect. And I know it's not, and I know that there's, Zen at war, and there's all kinds of problems, but for a while I needed it to be perfect. And I kind of have tried to take that, because that's very embarrassing, that's another story, to try to understand, for example, Trump supporters. And to try to understand how you needed to believe in something, and you just don't want to hear anything because there's something that you need and you can't let go of that at that time. So I went from, running away, dabbling to clinging. And then eventually, of course, I'm gonna have to let go of that, and to kind of relax against that. I had the teacher here up on too high of a pedestal, and I overlooked some things that I shouldn't have overlooked. And it's because I did not want to see them. I did not want to, you tried to point out something wrong, just like in some political situations, you point out, nope. So I think that's how that when I found my religion, that transition started.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Your childhood friend that married creepy guy, have you?
He died, and we have reconnected.
Oh, good.
I don't want to discuss the situation, because why am I going to insult her dead husband? That doesn't seem right to me. When we reconnected, it was really weird, because she didn't remember a lot of like our childhood. I would start talking like, what is the matter? I'm like, oh, we used to go disco dancing and whatever. And she's like, I'm sorry. Finally, she's like, I don't remember a lot of that time frame. And it's like, she didn't remember things that were happened before she met this guy. So I'm like, okay. But then every once in a while I'll get a text like, I was thinking about you the other day, I heard this song. So I wonder if it just was in there somewhere, it just needed to kind of reactivate. But she's still very, very, very Christian. I haven't told her I'm a Buddhist, I don't see the need to. She's still in St. Louis. I call her mom, still, because I've always called her that. I've known her since 4th grade. So if I go to St. Louis, I usually stop by and say hi to them and see them, and I text on her birthday. So it's not like we're close. But, but yeah, I was glad to have her in my life. That felt right. And I wasn't sorry that he died from that.
Unless anybody else has comments, we can close up. Thank you, Vicki.
Okay, thank you.
Closing chant, call and response. The many beings vowing to carry them across
The
beings are numberless, vowing to carry them across. Greed, anger, and ignorance rise endlessly, vowing to cut off the mind road. Greed, anger, and ignorance rise endlessly, vowing to cut off the mind road. Dharma gates are countless, vowing to wake to them all. Dharma gates are countless, vowing to wake to them all. Buddha's ways all embracing, vowing to follow through. Buddha's ways all embracing, vowing to follow through.
Just a couple announcements. Next Saturday, July 15th, we're having a work day from 9 to
One,
noon.
I thought it was one.
You know, I did say 1.
No.
Whatever. And we'll provide some refreshments, snacks, but. Also, we have a session coming up, the following weekend. It's a 2.5-day session. So, anybody interested in that, go ahead and sign up online. Also, we're having a work practice, so we'll have maybe 20-minute tea and conversation and some cleaning after that today. Anything else I'm forgetting?
Probably.
Yeah. Okay, let's put things back in place and down.
Is that, I'm trying to figure out, is that Benji? Oh, okay, hi there. Yeah, hey there. Okay, it is. Okay, I didn't.
Excellent job, Vicki. Thank you so much.
Sure thing.